Thank you very much for the kind invitation. I've been to Georgetown many times. I have participated in different debates, but it's very special indeed to meet you again and to be together with you, Federico. And yes, you made a very good contribution to the advisors to the ministry in these very intense years, the last 6 years, including the pandemic, including the start of the war in Ukraine, period of inflation, slowdown economic progress in Spain, and now a massive, strong growth of the economy. Only yesterday, the International Monetary Fund has signaled Spain as the fastest growing economy amongst the developed economies. It is the only country that has been revised upward in terms of the forecast of growth for this year. So we must have done something right, together during those years. That's very clear. It's a great pleasure to talk to you here in Georgetown, also to see so many young people joining. And I think it is a very timely moment, a very timely debate in the current geopolitical context when so many things are changing around us, to have the opportunity to listen, to have a debate, and to share with you some reflections on today's challenges and the role of Europe in today's world and in the new global order that is in the making. Based on my personal experience, indeed, first at the European Commission, then as a minister and vice president of the government of Spain, and now as president of the European Investment Bank. I'd like to start with some warnings. So I will use in my remarks some heavily charged words, revolutionary even, like climate, women. I may even talk about win-win partnerships. And also a spoiler alert, you will hear at the end of my presentation, I'm really proud to be European, even more these days than ever. And so the whole presentation will be talking about the role of Europe and what are the strengths of the European Union in today's world and as we are shaping the world of tomorrow. Because, as you know very well, the shareholders of the European Investment Bank are the 27 member states. They speak 24 different languages. They are governed by different parties and coalitions from all over the ideological spectrum, and yet we manage to bring things together and to agree. We share priorities that are very important for us. An environment of freedom and peace for our countries, stability, certainty, opportunities for growth for our businesses, social infrastructures, that means good, affordable housing, access to quality healthcare, top-notch education, an inclusive society where people are confident about a better future for them and for their children, solid international partnerships built on mutual respect with win-win outcomes. And of course, all of this in a livable planet where we try to ensure that future generations are going to be able to also thrive. And this that I have just described together with the rule of law is the basics, isn't it? Just the basics. But it shows how the European Union is united in its diversity. And the European Investment Bank is a true success story of European unity. As you already said, it's the largest multilateral development institution in the world with a balance sheet close to 600 billion euros, AAA credit rating, around 90 billion euros in annual investment. 90% of it is inside the European Union, but 10%, and that's around 8 to 9 billion euros outside the EU. Last year, as I took over at the helm of the European Investment Bank, we worked on a strategic roadmap with 8 key priorities, which were unanimously endorsed by the member states. And they agreed unanimously to put as priority number 1, supporting the green transition, consolidating the role of the European Investment Bank as the climate bank. Last year alone, we provided 60% of our financing was going to supporting the green transition in Europe and beyond. And really, at the European Union and at the European Investment Bank, we see this transition as a key driver for Europe's competitiveness, security, stability, strategic autonomy. Because from the European perspective, it's a no-brainer. we cannot continue to rely on fossil fuel producers. So it's a matter of security and strategic autonomy now. It's not only a matter of nice to have thinking about future generations. This transition is also helping drive homegrown innovation and industrial excellence, developing the breakthrough technologies and supporting European champions that are investing in energy security, in decarbonization of heavy industry, and providing high quality and jobs for the future. It is also a no-brainer from a broader perspective, because we know very clearly that every euro, every dollar invested in prevention and adaptation to climate change is actually saving 5 to 7 euros or dollars when we're talking about repair of costs, repair and the costs of reconstruction after one of these climate originated disasters hit our countries. Sustainable finance can also contribute to deepening Europe's capital markets. As you probably, or you don't have to know, but let me tell you, the European Investment Bank was the first issuer of a green bond back in 2007. So we have been pioneering this market, which is alive and kicking. Actually, only a couple of weeks ago, we issued the first bond under the European Green Bond Standard. We had a 3 billion euro issuance that was very heavily oversubscribed. When I say oversubscribed, I mean 13 times oversubscribed. So it seems like financial markets actually are betting on this green transition and green investments as something that makes eminent sense. It's not only the right thing to do, but the smart thing to do to continue to proceed in this direction. And this issuance is also providing a European safe asset. I know, Federico, you're very keen on having this discussion. Well, investors seem to be thinking that the European institutions issuing are providing a European safe asset, which is also contributing to more integrated capital markets on the other side of the Atlantic. In the last year, there have been a lot of high-level reports talking about Europe's competitiveness. What are the key drivers for Europe's competitiveness? And we can summarize that with 4 words. Market integration, including capital markets, I already mentioned it. Large-scale investment, simplification. And I would add the 4th one, which is international partnerships. These are the 4 key areas where the European Investment Bank is also putting our money where our mouth is, trying to support these policy drivers inside the EU. I want to mention these international partnerships because obviously this is the week of the spring meetings of the IMF and the World Bank. So this is going to be our top priority this week, how to reinforce Europe's international partnerships for peace and prosperity. The bedrock of our prosperity and our well-being and our security is actually having the multilateral system, which is based on rules and based on win-win outcomes and cooperative partnerships. This has served us well in the last 80 years. It has served the European Union. It has certainly even served more the interest of the United States, and it should be also the basis for our cooperation going forward. We joined forces 80 years ago to build this multilateral framework. We have been supporting this rules-based environment, and I am deeply convinced we should also continue to cooperate to make sure that the new world order, which is in the making, is also based on a set of rules and a set of multilateral institutions. And instead of creating new ones, we should build on those that have proven to be really strong and allowed us to bring prosperity throughout the world. One of the key areas that we will be working on and that we will be talking about in the course of these spring meetings is Ukraine. I just participated in an event in the Council of Foreign Relations. We had an exchange with the finance minister of Ukraine, Serhiy Marchenko, and we were talking about the support that the European Union is providing to Ukraine at this point in time. The European Investment Bank is probably the main investment partner to the Ukrainian government. That means right now financing key infrastructures, energy infrastructures, water, transport infrastructures, rebuilding schools, universities, such as this one. It is also building shelters to protect the kids so that they can continue to have a life which is as normal as possible in these absolutely extraordinary times. This means building resilience of the country, and I hope that very soon this resilience will allow us to go into the reconstruction phase. But I think this support for Ukraine, which I am sure is going to be very strongly supported by the meetings of the Friends of Ukraine that will take place this week, as we do at every meeting of the IMF and the World Bank here in Washington, this support is signaling the power and the importance of these international partnerships to us. And I think also the determination of the EU to respond, to adapt to the shifting geopolitical landscape. Let me finish precisely on this note. There's a shifting geopolitical challenge landscape, and there are common challenges that have a global nature. If there's one thing we have discovered in the last years, I haven't discovered it, but we have really seen it in our daily lives, is that, for example, pandemics, they can cross oceans. They don't stop at political borders. It's the same when we're talking about climate change. It's the same when we're talking about our shared security. It is the same when we're talking about financial stability. These are global challenges that need to be tackled through cooperative infrastructures, cooperative institutions, through strong partnerships, starting with the transatlantic partnership, which is probably the largest strategic partnership in the world that has preserved and been so important for the global order until today. Well, let me just conclude by emphasizing that from the European point of view, we have no hesitation. We will stand by the foundations of this partnership. We will continue to defend a rules-based global order and the institutions that underpin it, that we build together. The World Bank, the IMF, the principles of the UN Charter, the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization. These are some of the most important partners to the European Investment Bank and to the European Union, which we will continue to support going forward. We will continue to strive to bring down barriers to trade and to promote open economies, open trade. The European Union is the world's biggest network of free trade agreements, which we keep expanding on a daily basis, most recently by concluding negotiations with the Mercosur countries, but there are a number of ongoing negotiations which are surely going to continue to reinforce our partnerships around the world. We will continue to bring strong partnerships with emerging economies and countries around the world, because we believe that stability and shared economic prosperity are mutually reinforcing. We will continue to invest in women's empowerment, because investing in women is investing in societies, stability and peace around the world. And we will continue to support the technological leadership and excellence of European companies, including through European Investment Bank Group investments. So, in a nutshell, what does this mean? It means to continue to build bridges, to turn challenges into opportunities, to provide certainty in this extremely volatile and uncertain world, and to remain a beacon of human rights and values for peoples around the globe. This is Europe, and in a nutshell, I'm proud to be European. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. I think this is fantastic, particularly, here in Washington, the conversation and the discussion is not so often about partnerships, and it's really refreshing to hear a voice coming from, the largest trading bloc, the largest donor in the world, and let me push you a little bit on this issue, particularly because some of my colleagues here, particularly American academics, which are very, very, very pro-European integration, are making the point that this is probably the moment in which, if we have, let's call it a dormant US in multilateral institutions, let's just call it dormant, the EU has the capacity to be the builder of coalitions of the willing to even reform the WTO, or even continue with the reform of the agenda of multilateral development banks to finance the global public goods and challenges. So to what extent do you see that as feasible, and which would be the key partners in the global south, but also elsewhere?
Yes, two very important points. I was emphasizing here the important role of multilateral institutions. But in order for institutions to perform their role and to be fit for purpose, they need to evolve. They need to integrate the changes that are taking place. And it's very clear that the world of today is very different to the world of the end of World War II. You know, at that point in time, the US represented 60–70% of the world's GDP. Europe was devastated. There was a colonial reality around the world. Many of the countries that are independent countries now were colonies at the time. Of course, none of the emerging economies and the BRICS countries were actually relevant economies at that point in time. So we are dealing with a completely different economic and social environment around the world, and it's only natural that the multilateral framework adjusts, incorporates those changes, and finds a way to continue to perform its role in this new environment. And from this point of view, I think the European Union will certainly play a key role in driving these reforms. Well, for one thing, it is the key shareholder in these institutions. We are present, the European Union countries are key shareholders in all the different multilateral development banks around the world, because it's not only the World Bank and the IMF, we're also talking about the African Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, of course the European Investment Bank, which is the only one that is only having as shareholders the 27 member states. But there is a myriad, there's a network of multilateral institutions where the European countries are very well represented. And the other asset and strength, I think, for the European Union in this debate is precisely the fact that we have trade agreements and investment agreements and partnerships with 76 countries around the world. And we are currently engaged in negotiations with countries that go from India to South Korea, New Zealand, Chile, Mexico, Mercosur I mentioned. So it is really covering the whole globe in terms of our partnership.